Well, good morning. I hope you had a great weekend. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take for Market Rebellion and hitting it a little bit early today. And the reason is we've got some unbelievable weather outside. Had a great weekend, 90s, sunny, all that. But now all of a sudden it looks like there's a big clash between the heat and some of these storms, and want to make sure that we're able to get this up there before we maybe lose some signal. So anyway, hope everybody had a great weekend and a safe 4th of July. And what a wonderful weekend that we had, for sure. We absolutely enjoyed every second of it. Not as much fireworks as usual, but a lot of things have been unusual this year, as we all know. So when we look back to last week on Thursday, not Friday, but Thursday, because we had the extended weekend, I'll tell you what, that jobs report really was extraordinary. And the markets had a nice explosive move to the upside. But one of the themes that we've seen play out over and over again has been either a late surge or a late pullback. Well, Thursday we had a pretty big pullback of about 200 points, and that was a pretty significant move in the Dow late in the session. As a matter of fact, a couple names actually finished in the red, despite the fact that we had a strong day. Nice move to the upside, but look over at Disney and McDonald's and Walmart and those names all pushing into the red as we pulled back. Now, the NASDAQ pulled back as well, but wow, some of the performance absolutely extraordinary. And part of the focus, I think, maybe late was going into the weekend. We've seen this surge in cases and a lot of concern going into the weekend of what's going to come out on the other side of the weekend. So that might have been something that was playing into this bit of a sell-off that we were seeing last Thursday, which was pretty extraordinary, actually, late in the session. And I think the biggest surprise for me was, and I guess it shouldn't have been, because we had a great movement within the marketplace. When you look at the highs and the lows and some of that intraday movement that we had, that was pretty big. But we had 29.5 million contracts trading on Thursday. So the volume was definitely there, which is definitely surprising, only from the standpoint of the long weekend, people oftentimes leaving by about noon. So the final few hours, there are less people available and less volume, and it starts to get a little bit tricky or dicey. That wasn't necessarily the case. It got a little dicey because we did see some of that sell-off late in the session. But where was some of the strength? Well, semiconductors. They really did stand out, up about 1.5%. Near all-time highs. And then you look at Qualcomm and ASML and NVIDIA and Intel. Those were the names that were helping press that move to the upside out of that whole semiconductor space, which has been so strong. And as I say, nearing all-time highs. So that's definitely something that stands out. You know what did hit all-time highs? Microsoft, not surprising. How about Apple at 370? Closed at 364, flat, exactly flat on the day. But 370, that's been a name that has been absolutely just strong, along with Microsoft, strong and amazing resilience, even on the down days, how those stocks have actually held up. Now, crude held up very nicely around 40. You look over at gold, hanging around that 1800 level, had volatilities trading somewhere around that 27, 28. So yes, we are below that range of 31 to 36. Matter of fact, starting off today, we'll jump right away into this. Now we're looking at a volatility that's trading somewhere in the 26s. So we've been watching this sort of a steady pullback in volatility on the days where we're down. The markets, in terms of volatility, aren't moving up to the same extent that they have been in the past. So we are seeing a little bit more of that push to the downside in volatility, specifically on the days where we have these big up days. So today, start off the day, go through the weekend. You got a lot of new cases, just like maybe was looking forward ahead last Thursday. Yet the markets don't seem to mind at all. As a matter of fact, you look at the S&P up 45 handles. You're looking at a 1.5% move almost. Industrials up about 1.5%, nearly 400 points. You look at the NASDAQ up over 1.5%. That's 160 points. That's a really impressive early move. Now, we are very early. This is the first half hour of the trading session. Right now, as I'm looking at the Dow. It's trading exactly 414 points higher. NASDAQ's trading 160 points higher, and the S&P now about 43 points higher. So what are some of the names that are really pushing right now? Well, Tesla. Is Tesla just an amazing stock? This thing just continues to run to the upside, and a nice 6% move today. The other thing that stands out right now is as we're looking at what are the certain areas that are moving well, financials, they look pretty good this morning. You look at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, American Express, Travelers, which sometimes gets thrown into that sort of picture as well. Industrials with Raytheon and Boeing and CAT and Dow and 3M, all of those look very strong. One name in the Dow early on is in the red. Only one of the 30. That's Intel. Goldman Sachs decided to put a a rating of sell on this particular name and dropped the price target as well. Not really pushing it down as much as maybe you would think. When you hear sell and you see the price target moving from in the 60s to like 54, something like that, you say, wow, this thing's going to be moving to the downside. It's not. Intel's actually holding up pretty well. It is in the red, but it is barely in the red right now, along with the markets themselves that are very strong. As a matter of fact, if I look and jump over to the semiconductors real quick, they are absolutely on fire once again. And it's a lot of these manufacturing, Applied Materials, Lam Research, KLAC 10, that whole area really powering the SMH to a move that's nearly 2% higher right now. So what are some of the other areas that are moving right now in terms of the NASDAQ? Take a look at some of these Chinese names. Look at Baidu, look at JD. These names are really sticking out, and I'm going to be jumping to something that ties right into that in just a second. But one of the other areas that does stand out is biotech. And we've talked about this time and time again when we say it's not just about the Power Five. There are all kinds of different areas in the marketplace, the broad market rally. Look at biotech, XBI, IBB, all those types of names. This name, Regeneron, today stands out. And why? Because they had some pretty positive cocktail treatment potential that could work really interestingly, and they're moving at a rapid pace. So we'll see how that plays out in terms of the COVID and how to treat it potentially. So we've heard from Pfizer, we've heard from Amgen, we've heard from Gilead, there isn't anybody it doesn't seem like we've heard from. And there's so many great combinations of companies that are working together as well. I think that we will see something at a fairly rapid pace. It doesn't mean necessarily we see it before the end of the year, however, but something very, very rapid when you look back to where these guys all started in this field and attacking this right out of the gates. It's amazing how fast they are moving, and we are seeing some incredible numbers getting put in front of us in terms of the potential. And until we get something, obviously, that's going to be concerning. But there is great potential out there, and there are so many different companies right now working on either vaccines or what have you, that this is really something that's been spectacular to watch over the last time frame of since, call it, early February, maybe, as you pushed into March and all the rest. That really does stand out. Now, big tech is big tech. We got Apple and Microsoft and Amazon. They're all up nearly 2% once again. Facebook actually in positive territory after a nice bounce back from getting pushed down from 245 down towards 210 and now hanging around that near 235 sort of range. So that's been hanging in there. Talked about volatility being near 26, but I also mentioned that we had some of those Chinese names that were moving significantly to the upside and powering the markets as well. Baidu and JD I pulled up there. First out of the gate today, unusual option activity that we did see, Alibaba. So that's what I'm going to give you, Alibaba. It sticks out because it sticks with that Chinese theme. Plus, stock's trading about 235, and we have buyers of 5,100 of this week's expiring, July 10th, this week's expiring 240 strike calls. Started buying them at about $1.70. Pushed all the way up to about 280. Stock was trading 235.50 at the time. Stock might be moving even faster, either to the upside or maybe pulling back to the downside. Not really sure right this second, but at that price range, that's when we saw a pretty nice big chunk start to come in and start to purchase some of those options, as I say, between 170 and 280. Doesn't mean there's anything guaranteed, and it's very short term, which plays into something that's been playing out now for probably the better part of a year and a half. Very, very short term. And this is extremely short term because these expire July 10th. Keep that in mind. You have to understand the options world. You have to understand the derivatives world. How do you do that? You get educated. You get educated through some of the best in the industry. That's Market Rebellion. I got to have a shout out to my guys. Hey, Corey, the Minnesotan, this is where I get a lot of my shirts, a lot of my hats. These guys are absolutely phenomenal. They also give a nice chunk to Twin Cities Lime Foundation. My wife is the founder of that. It's an unbelievable foundation, folks, that is trying to work and help people out as they try to navigate through potentially with what's going on in the Lyme disease world. May was Lyme Disease Awareness Month. A lot of us know that. But I got to tell you something. I know COVID's out there. Lyme disease does not stop. It continues as well. So this is something we're trying to attack. And these guys at the Minnesotan do an unbelievable job. So if you're ever interested, we got the Take, we got the Giddy Up, we got the Bulls, we got hats, we got golf shirts, we got T-shirts. They've got everything over there. These guys are absolutely great over at the Minnesotan. So check it out if you get a chance to. Folks, have a great day of trading. We'll see you tomorrow.